Welcome to the Holistic Soul Sisters Radio, a channel created to help you heal holistically and grow spiritually. I'm your host, Mandy Rose. I'm not afraid to talk about taboo subjects, so nothing is off limits here. Make sure you hit subscribe and get ready to learn more from me and other experts on all things health, spirituality, astrology, lifestyle, relationships, and so much more. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's begin. Welcome back, Holistic Soul Sisters. It's me, Mandy Rose, your holistic health coach, spiritual mentor, and astrologer. So just consider me your holistic soul big sister. I'm here to help you guys heal holistically, grow spiritually. And with this mini series, we are doing just that. Did you guys catch the first episode in energetic healing on chakras? That was definitely one of my favorite episodes to record and to talk about. I probably could have made a 3-hour episode on it. I just love how the chakra system can explain so many of our physical ailments and how there's so many different ways that we can rebalance and align each chakra point, whether you're using sound frequency, color and light, crystals, food, emotions, meditation, yoga, movement. I mean, there's just so many ways that we can bring our bodies back into balance that make energetic sense. So this week we are continuing on with the energetic healing mini series. And you guys, I recorded the episode yesterday, November 1st, with my own personal spiritual counselor, spiritual mentor, spiritual guide, who came to me like an angel when I was in the thick of my mold illness, my health crash, my crisis, my dark night of the soul episode. And she was sent to me through a really good girlfriend who saw how much I was suffering, who was super worried for me and my health. She was a nurse and she just knew and could see in my eyes that I was going down a really dark path. And I just even personally did not think at some points that I was ever going to be able to climb out of that illness. And she said to me, I really want you to call my friend. She is a past life regression therapist. She does karmic healing. And I was like, what the heck? And you guys know me. I'm pretty spiritual. Like, I've believed in God my whole life. I like oracle decks and tarot cards. I love crystals. I'm a Scorpio rising. So anything in the like woo-woo occult world, that's me. I'm not afraid of the spiritual realm at all. But when she sent me to Haddasah, I was a little worried, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't understand what past life regression was. I didn't understand what karmic cord cutting meant. And I definitely had no idea how my past lineage, my ancestral trauma, and how past lives that I had lived out were actually affecting me in this lifetime. So the session I did with her changed my life. And the next day I woke up and I had an appointment with my counselor that my husband at the time and I were seeing together to help me navigate this health journey and communicate to him how and what I was feeling. And so she had only ever met me while I was really sick. And this was maybe the 4th appointment. And I didn't tell anyone that I was doing this session with Haddasah. I didn't want people to judge me. So I walked into her office, and remember, she has only met me while I'm sick. And I walk in and she looks at me with these eyes and she's like, something's different about you today. And I didn't really physically feel any different the day after the session. So I didn't really know what she meant. And I asked her, what do you mean I look different? I didn't change my hair. I still look like a hot mess, sick with mold. And she's like, I don't know. You're just smiling and your energy just seems really bright. This is the first time I've ever seen you smile. And looking back, it makes so much sense because Haddasah had cleared so much of my negative energy, this negative karma, negative perspective, this negative energy that was inside of me that I've been holding on to for so long. A little personal history on me. I am a very type A person. So I'm a Virgo. Things have to be perfect. And if they're not, I'm disappointed. A lot of family trauma, coming from Europe and that ancestral lineage of World War II, World War I, personal childhood trauma when I was younger, my parents getting divorced, a lot of fighting. And then, as I grew up, I masked all my feelings with hard work, getting 2 bachelor degrees in 3 years, working always 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs. In relationships, I was always very masculine. I didn't want to share my emotions, so I just stuffed them all down. And then this health crisis came in crashing and halting me in my tracks, forcing me to lay on a couch. So I'm going to share with you guys a little bit about that session, my takeaways, how it worked for me, and then you guys are going to hear an interview that I got to do with Haddasah. I am filled with gratitude and I feel so blessed to have her on this podcast. She's never done an appearance on a podcast or a YouTube or anything like that. She used to host group sessions, but now she prefers to do one-on-one. She does them virtually through the phone, so you can do a session with her anywhere on the planet, which I absolutely loved. We talked a little bit in this episode how she used to do sessions in person. However, it's hard to release and let go when you feel like a counselor or a therapist or someone is looking at you and watching your reactions. So being able to have the freedom of laying on your couch privately by yourself, having her in your ears using headphones and her walking you and guiding you through this experience in the privacy of your own home was something I really appreciated and also needed because I was so sick I could barely even leave my couch. So this is an opportunity for everyone out there, if you're listening to this podcast, to do a past life regression session. You'll hear in this interview why you should do one, how it can help you, and she gives really great examples of how she has seen it change people's lives over the years of her doing it. So you will definitely hear this interview with her. It's so special to me. We really dive into many different topics, not just past life regression, but also our energy field and how we can protect our energy. And she also gives some great nuggets of wisdom. She channeled our entire session. So all of the words that she shares came from source, from God, from her angels. And it's really a message I am honored to share on this podcast. And if you are interested in doing a session with her by the time this episode is over, I linked her website, which is just haddassahtoyo.com. There is also her WhatsApp and phone number. She prefers to just communicate through text message or just call her on the phone. She's so easily accessible. That's what I loved about her. I called her up, she answered, and we got to have a little conversation where she explained to me what she does, how she thinks it could help me, and she is so easy to talk to. So all of her information will be linked in the show notes. If you'd like to reach out to me personally and you have more questions about the session or you want me to connect you with her, I am so happy and honored to do so. So before we dive into that interview, let me share with you guys a little bit about my personal session because we do talk about it in the interview. So let's dive right in to my personal past life regression therapy session. All right, so as I begin this story, I do want to let you guys know I am leaving out a lot of personal details that are very intimate that affect me and my family and people close to me. So I'm not going to be sharing every little detail. I hope that this gives you a really great perspective of what a session could look like for you. You'll hear in the interview with Haddasah that every session is unique. Usually it's just one session and you're done. And that's something I really loved about this opportunity. Talk therapy and going to a counselor can take months and months and months. And here, you don't tell her anything about yourself. You don't need to tell her about your family history. She just channels. And it was something I was a little skeptical about, right? Let's be honest. I think a lot of us are skeptical. We don't understand how this can work. But I was at this point in my life where I was so sick that I was willing to try anything. And I think that when you're in a period of your life where the same thing keeps happening over and over again, or you're so sick and nothing's working, you get to this point of rock bottom, this desperation of I will do and try anything to change my life because I can't sit in this space any longer. And the hardest part is trying to find someone that you can trust. So I was kind of at that point when I met Haddasah, but there was something about it, something in my soul that said, you got to do this, girlfriend. You got to try this. I mean, if you don't, you're always going to regret it, right? So we set my appointment. Something she told me was make sure on the day of your appointment, you can be alone in your home, right? Send everyone away. This is a time for you. This is a space for you. She wanted me to wear all white. I had my white clothes ready. I had some breakfast. I laid on my couch. I called her up and I'll never forget, right before the phone call, I was shaking. And I had a lot of anxiety because of the mold and I've if you guys caught the episode, the intro episode to energetic healing, we talked about anxiety and how anxiety is a lot of stuck energy. And I had a lot of anxiety because I had a lot of stuck energy inside of me. So I was shaking as I was dialing the number and thought I was going to hyperventilate, and I'm laying on the couch and her voice comes on the phone and I instantly just relaxed. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. She definitely did not go into detail or describe what we were going to be doing, even though I asked over and over and over again. But this interview, you guys will get a really clear idea. I just didn't have that information at the time. So we get on the phone and I'm laying on my couch and we started out with this beautiful ceremony, calling in God, calling in angels, calling in my ancestors. And that eased me immediately, knowing that she had God here and the Archangel Michael and Raphael and all of these angels that I had believed in my entire life. So instantly my soul was calmed. And then we did a beautiful ceremony of cord cutting. Now, if you've never done cord cutting, you can find a meditation on YouTube, something you can start by yourself. But essentially, it's this beautiful practice, this ritual, this visualization of releasing the energetic ties and cords that we have with other people in our life, because people can pull and drain them, right? So for instance, this is just an example. Let's say you have a really close friend you've had since childhood. You have an energetic tie to that person. That's why sometimes when you think of them, they'll call you within that same hour, right? Because you're energetically connected. But what can happen is sometimes they expect so much of your energy. Every time they call, you better pick up and answer, right? Every time they need you, you better come running. And that energetic tie can weigh you down and make you feel so heavy. So this ritual is designed to go through the most important people in your life and cut that energy. And it's something I'd never thought about, something I'd never assessed. And through that ritual alone, it really made me feel lighter. There was a lot of people in my life I needed to cut ties with. And this didn't mean I was cutting them out of my life or I was never going to talk to them again. It just meant energetically, I couldn't let them pull me anymore. If you're someone like me and you have high expectations for yourself to be a good person and be there for everyone and help rescue people, right? Do you have that rescuer archetype where you just want to be the hero in everyone's story? That was me. And so this was amazing. Now, something I'm going to share with you guys, like I said, I'm not going to go too much into intimate details on people that are close to me, but this is a funny example. I cut a lot of energetic ties to all my past boyfriends, all my past lovers, people that I hadn't spoken to in a while, people I still thought of. I just knew that to move forward in my life, I needed to cut those energetic ties with those people. So I did. And what do you think happened over the course of the next week? All of those old boyfriends reached out to me in one way or another, whether it was text message, they friend requested me on Facebook, they sent me an email, people I hadn't even spoken to in like 7 years, 15 years. It was like for some reason, they felt an energetic shift and maybe felt like they lost a connection to me and they wanted to reach out just to see if it was still there, just to see if they could still have a conversation or a connection to me. So it was so surreal that happened, especially since I hadn't heard from a lot of them in like almost a decade. So I knew it worked. That was proof for me. So after this cord cutting ceremony, we dove into some past life regression. And I know that's what you're really curious about. I had never thought about past lives, in a detailed sense. I do personally believe that I have a past life in Egypt. I've always been obsessed with Egypt, but other than that, I've never thought about past lives. And I definitely didn't think about the trauma that occurred to me in past lives. So this session, when we did the past life regression therapy, essentially she put me in a beautiful meditative state. I'd say hypnotic, but I think hypnosis makes people think a certain thing that it's not. So I'm not going to use the word hypnosis, but it was a beautiful meditation. And she guided me through, and essentially she had me close my eyes, get into a very restful theta state, that state where you kind of feel like you're falling asleep, but you're not asleep. And she said to me, I want you to look down and look at your feet and tell me what you see. I look down at my feet and I see these old man feet. And I was like, what the heck? What did I just visualize, right? So she's asking me on the phone, what do you see? And I tell her this old man's feet. And she's like, okay, now I want you to look around you and see what you see. Who do you see? What do you see? And I remember trying to see this like woman, like I could kind of see her, but not really see her. And I couldn't make out her face. And she said to me, can you see her? And I was like, yeah, but I can't really see her face. Like I can't make it out. And I was trying so hard, right? Like that part of our brain that wants to make sense of something was getting active. And I was like, I'm trying. I can't see her. And she said, I know she doesn't want you to see her. She has a black veil on. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. That's actually what I'm seeing. Now, before the session, she had asked me to come into the ceremony with a couple different words or topics or things in my life that had been bothering me for a really long time. And one of the words I kept coming across was the word betrayal. For some reason in my life, whether it was in my marriage or with my friends or with my family, I felt like betrayal was something that always happened to me, and I always made a mountain out of a molehill about. So, for instance, if I had a girlfriend and we were close and I hated this other person and I found out that she talked to that other person, I would feel so betrayed. Like, how dare you? You're supposed to be my friend. Like, you're not even supposed to look at that person. When you see them coming down the street, you should actually make fun of them or throw eggs at them. Like, that was my stance on things. And I wanted to figure out why. So in this past life, that was something I said to her. I want to go back and figure out where this comes from. And you can do this in your session if you have a physical ailment. She talks about it in the interview that you guys are going to hear shortly. If you have physical ailments, maybe something happened to you in a past life where you broke your leg or got into a car accident. And this is where past life regression starts to make sense in our today life. So anyways, I see this woman and I can't quite figure out what it is. And she says to me, you guys are in a fight. What do you think the fight is about? And I immediately think a woman, and I'm an old man. You think of a relationship. I thought intimacy, and I thought maybe cheating, right? So like something like that, infidelity. So I said to her infidelity, through the phone as I'm laying on my couch with my eyes closed. But the minute it came out of my mouth, I immediately felt like, no, I think it has something to do with money. But I already said to her infidelity. So I was like, let's just go with it. I don't really know what I'm doing. I've never done anything like this. So I'm just going to go with infidelity. But in my head, I kept thinking money. So then we kind of talk it through the scene, what I'm seeing, how I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing energetically within my body. And then about 5 minutes later, she says to me, Mandy, through the phone, right? Mandy, I want to let you know that the situation that you're seeing in your visualization actually has to do with money. And I was like, oh my God, how did she know that? How did she know that? And at that moment, it was like this instant belief. I knew whatever I was doing was true, was real, was worth it, was worth every fear and hesitation I had. And I said to her, really? Okay. And then we go on through this visualization, this past life, realizing that I had been married to this woman and she had all the money. She was rich and she had this money, and she was leaving me in my older years to fend for myself. I was weak. I was poor. I was old. So this made sense. I felt betrayed by someone, and why in my life betrayal in this lifetime kept coming up for me to heal it, for me to think of it in a different way, to experience it and change the narrative in this lifetime. And it's crazy because you guys know my story with my marriage ending and all of that. It ended in betrayal. It ended with my best friend of a decade husband leaving me out of the blue with no warning, ghosting me at the airport, and then not only that, but betraying me with a coworker of his who I actually was friends with on Facebook and had given health guidance advice to. What an ultimate betrayal, right? But thankfully, I had done this past life regression session 6 months prior, and my viewpoint was different. Instead of being angry and carrying this heavy negative energy around betrayal, I realized if that's what he wanted in life, then he needs to go down that journey. That is his route. That is his path. There is something that he needs to learn in that, and he needs to go. And I don't need to feel betrayed. I need to now take this as an opportunity to work on Mandy, an opportunity to shift my life and my narrative and to go towards my purpose and my direction. And although it hurt, you guys know my story. I'm not going to bullshit you. It hurt, but this betrayal, that feeling, it just never came up again. And now in my current relationship, that word doesn't even exist. I don't feel like if he ever wanted someone else or wanted to do something else or talk to somebody I don't like, I wouldn't feel betrayed, right? If he wants to talk to someone that I don't care for, that is his choice. And he'll learn himself if that's a good person or not, right? That's not my right to say anymore. So this perspective shift that I got out of this past life regression. We also did another past life regression, which helped me understand why I have such a fear of being sick, a fear of dying at a young age, because in a past life, I had passed away at the age of 30. I got to go into that past life. I got to be there at the moment I was passing away at this young age of 30. And everything just made so much more sense. Again, going back can help you move forward. And, it's something that Haddasah talks about is it's not something you have to believe in. If it works, right? So give it a try. And she gives a really good example of that in the interview on someone who had absolutely no belief system around energetic healing, did one quick session with her, and everything shifted in her life. The last part of my session after we did some of the past life stuff is she did some exploration in my energetic body, trying to find out where those stuck systems are and the chakras. And essentially, she just pulled all the negative energy out of my body, cleared it so that I could feel so much lighter. And the last thing I'm going to share with you guys about my session, we do talk about it in the interview as well, is clearing demonic or negative energy beings that cling to you. Now, I know this sounds way woo-woo and way out there, and if I didn't experience it physically myself, I don't know if I would actually believe it, right? So we watch all these like Halloween movies and horror movies about people being possessed and these demons taking over their body. But you guys, this can actually happen, and it happened to me. So follow along because it's a little crazy. So we went to Amsterdam. This is about 3 months before I got really, really sick. We traveled overseas, did this massive Euro trip, and the first stop on our trip was Amsterdam. I'm so excited to go to Amsterdam. I planned the trip. I can't wait to go and experience it. Day 2 of our trip, I remember walking into this bar with the group of us. There's 10 of us, my dad, my brother, my husband, my closest friends. Like, I'm not alone in a foreign country. I'm with a lot of people that care for me. And we walk into this bar, and I remember sitting in this bar, looking around the bar, and it was like immediately within a nanosecond, my whole body started shaking and I just wanted to scream. I've never experienced anything like this. It wasn't anxiety. It was like I wanted to crawl out of my skin and I wanted to scream and run out of that bar. And I remember looking over at everyone and I was like, I gotta go. I gotta go right now. I gotta get the hell out of here. I felt like the walls were caving in. I felt like the room was getting smaller. I felt like my head was dizzy and spinning. And I didn't pay my tab or anything. I ran out of the bar and stood on the street in Amsterdam just looking around. And I was like, what the hell just happened to me? Like, what the hell was that? And now my anxiety is kicking in, right? Because that felt so weird. And I just wanted to go back to the hotel room. I was done. I was over Amsterdam. I couldn't wait to leave in the morning. I just wanted to go back to the room. And it was pouring rain. And I walked back to the hotel room and I didn't think anything of it, right? Fast forward 6 months, I'm sick, I'm mold illness, everything is wrong with me, anxiety, can't get off the couch. And I had this session with Haddasah. And as we're talking, she didn't know I went to Amsterdam. She didn't really know about the Euro trip. She knew nothing about my family history. And she says to me, you went somewhere. You went somewhere in Europe and you have this energetic being clinging to you, taking your energy. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And you guys, I had no energy. I couldn't even walk. I couldn't get off the couch. My legs would give out if I stood up for more than 3 minutes. So when she said something is pulling your energy, I was like, holy crap, what are you talking about? So we keep talking. And essentially, she discovers and explains to me that I was in this place in Amsterdam and my DNA, right? We all have our own DNA. It's all unique to us individually, has its own vibration, right? DNA are cells that they have a vibration and they recognize other people's DNA. And she explained to me that someone in my lineage, someone in my family, someone in my history had a horrible ending in Amsterdam and they were still living there. Their spirit was still living there. And nobody in my family has been back to Amsterdam ever since. And so I'm the first in my lineage to return home to that place. And it recognized me and it wasn't trying to harm me. It wasn't trying to hurt me. It just recognized my soul through my DNA, through my vibration, through my frequency, and attached itself to me. And that attachment totally threw me off, totally fucked with my energy, totally robbed me of me, and was just holding on to me spiritually, holding on and clinging on, disrupting my entire field. So I then went to verify this after our session with my mom. And she said to me, someone in our lineage, yes, had moved away to Holland. And my grandma had never been to Amsterdam. My mother had never been to Amsterdam. I was the first. So we cleared that energy. Haddasah did a beautiful ceremony, removing that energetic being from me, separating us again. That was crazy. I didn't expect that. And she does talk about it in this interview about energetic beings and how they can cling to us. So totally wild experience. If I didn't live it, I don't know if I would believe it. So hopefully you guys can kind of open your mind. So I hope me sharing this personal story of mine about my past life regression session gave you some insight, gave you some out of the box thinking. Now this happened in February. You guys know it took me until almost July to heal myself of the mold, the physical healing that needed to happen. And that's because our bodies don't heal overnight. It was like I had removed the weight, like I had removed the negativity so that I could slowly start healing the physical body. But this needed to be the first step. And this is why this mini series of energetic healing is so helpful to people experiencing physical illness, because we can't heal. We're going to run along this hamster wheel of supplements and nutrition and pharmaceuticals and all the right things, but then you're going to get stuck. So that's where energetic healing comes in. So let's jump into the interview I did with Haddasah. Now, when we started recording, we were actually in the middle of a really good conversation. She had started channeling God and messages for us. So that is where we're going to start with this interview. Sorry, there is no formal official introduction. Haddasah Toyo is a spiritual counselor, a channel for inner healing. She specializes in inner healing karma life sessions. So that's what we talk about in this interview. It's also what she did for me when I did my past life regression session. So I hope you guys enjoyed this interview. We'll be jumping right into the middle of our conversation.
All of this, when we learned these things, like I learned a lot from my mother. There were times that she was tough. Coming from a Japanese heritage, she was tough. I never used to say, oh my God, your mom scares me. But she taught me things to help me to survive within myself, unbeknownst to her that I'd spent a lot of time alone.
Yeah.
We all come in for different reasons, okay? People find it maybe difficult to be around my energy for more than a couple of minutes or a day. It'll be enough for them, And not that I'm doing anything. I'm just being me, walking around. So we have to learn certain things to help us to do the work that we need to do. Like you've learned beautifully what you need to do. And you're doing it so well. But you had to go through a very hard time to learn that. So once you took away all of the stuff that was dragging you down, that was destroying you, you came out to be a beautiful rose, exactly like your name.
Thank
you. You're doing the work you're supposed to be doing. You're living the life you're supposed to be doing. And it's beautiful. I get great joy watching from where you were to where you are now and where you're going.
Oh, thank you. And like you said, it really was doing the work. And unfortunately, like many people, I was stuck in that pattern of, go to work 2 jobs, like material possession, have a nice house. And, my relationships suffered, my personal self-care suffered. And I went through this rabbit hole, this spiral. And I think I needed that. I needed to be knocked on my butt,
Yes.
to be knocked on the couch. And I feel like I see this when I do health coaching and when I work with other people, is that it's almost as the universe's message, God's message, to say, sit down and reflect inwards, because there's something within you that needs healing and nurturing and, attention. And that was kind of the moment I hit when you came into my life. Luckily I had this beautiful angel of Colette who guided you to me, but I needed answers for some things that I was repeating in my life, and
yes.
Our session, it changed my life. I mean, I'll never forget. It was a full moon in Aquarius. It was in February on the 11th. Like it was like pivotal moment, and that's why I wanted to have you on this podcast. And I wanted to
what you said is so important and so powerful. I'm an Aquarian and I was born on the full moon.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, what an alignment.
Yeah. So you see it's lined up. And I'll tell you another thing that you might not be aware of. You had a karma life healing before Colette had hers.
Really?
Yes. Look at that. And she gave you that information. But I knew that she loved you so much and she was afraid. She's a nurse, you know.
Yep.
And what she saw, what I saw was devastating.
Yeah.
So this is why we really had to pray and push for you. But this was your walk. It was all in alignment. Everything was as it should be. And you learned. The thing is, you knew where you were and you were really knocked off your butt. Not even sitting on your butt, but you were knocked off of that. You listened. You took that leap of faith and you blossomed to a beautiful rose and you lived.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, that leap of faith, because I remember, by the time I'd met you, I had been sick probably 4 or 5 months. And, I was going down the rabbit hole of all these physical things, seeing physical doctors and doing the supplements and the nutrition. And it just, nothing was clicking, and it was just like, there's something else here. There's something missing. And I'm very spiritual. I had crystals and believe in astrology, and I pray and believe in spirit guides. I'm very open spiritually.
That's all very spiritual.
Yeah. And then when I met you and I had this whole concept of, karmic healing and past life regression, there was still something within me that was fearful. I still had to take this leap of faith of, could this be the thing? Is this for real? And I think a lot of people, and that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast and just sharing with our holistic soul sister community, like the work that you do and how powerful it is. And there are people that are curious and they need that little, reassurance. And you gave me that call we had, that first call, something about you just like, my soul knew like this was the next step. This was the next thing. So can you kind of explain like the type of energy healing you do? Because this mini series is all about energetic healing, and there's many different ones, Reiki and, Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So can you share like kind of what your energy genius is?
All are very important. First of all, I'll tell you, I don't do Reiki. Reiki is a whole different ball game. I personally don't like the way Reiki works. I'll explain why. Reiki, the way they practice Reiki is they take, say you have cancer or any other disease, forever. You take that from the body, they run that through their body, and then they give you back the energy cleaned. What I know a lot of Reiki masters in my lifetime, unfortunately now they're all dead because they're basically poisoning their bodies to heal you, and which is totally unnecessary. We have a wonderful universe that vibrates at a pitch that is so full of love, joy, and clean energy. And that is how I use energy. I don't have to run it through my body. You can pull the energy from the universe, run it through your body, fill your body with it. But before I do that, I take out all the things that are hurting you, all the negative energy, all the illnesses and sicknesses are pulled from your body and locked down that they cannot come back to you. I hope I explained it well. I'll go over it again. The way I use the energy is I pull out everything that is negative, everything that is sick. It's all energy, even cancer. It first is an energy that becomes physical. All energies are like that. So you pull out all of the negative energy, all of the sickness from the body, send it to the abyss, lock it down, can't come back. And then I fill you with pure light and pure energy, like liquid pearl is poured back through the top of your head, floods your body, and you get well. That's how the healing part of that works. But what is even more important, as I call it Karma Life Healing, is you have to cut all of the past lives, all of the bad experiences that we've had in this lifetime and going back all the way to the beginning of time when you were created. The very first time you came into the world, when you were created by the universe, by love, by God, whatever name you want to put to it, but it is a good thing that you were created for. But all along the way in different lifetimes with different experiences, you'll be surprised that some guy fell off a cliff 2,000 years ago in a lifetime, broke his leg. There's nothing wrong with his leg in this lifetime, but he has a constant pain. So what I do is I go in and I remove the energy from that experience. And once that's gone, you fill it with light And in doing so, when you cut I call it the karmic string, from now all the way back to the first lifetime, it's dead. Everything that is bad leaves you. It can't come back. But everything that is good, because it's good, it will stay with you. And it will surface. And that way you will blossom into who you truly are and can then go forward and live freely instead of whining around for days and months. And also, what is good about this, it doesn't keep you in therapy for years and years and years or running around. So you see, it's clipped, go out and live your life. We don't want to go into 5 years of therapy, which I've had some people can't get over this one thing that's plaguing their life. No, you're done. You're free to go and live. Therapy is good, but it should not be constant. Okay? I try and make it as easy as possible for the client.
Oh, so beautifully said. Like you gave me chills. Like it just really reminded me of our session, and you explained it so perfectly. And, I love that. Something that made me really comfortable from the beginning was that you work with God and you work with the angels. And I think that's a very misnomer in the spiritual world. People hear of energy healing and past lives, and they're maybe very religious, and they're like, how can I fit that into what I believe? And you work with God and angels. Can you kind of share a little bit about that?
Yes, I could not do this without God's help. I could not do this without, I have Archangel Michael is with me constantly, and I'm truly blessed in having him work with me. I have an organizer. I don't have a name for him, but he has his clipboard, and I see everything up there. It's like my office is in the etheric world. It's up there. Okay. So when I'm ready to work, I have to be prepared. I'm always on time. They love you being on time because they're preparing for you. I'm preparing for you the moment I take the appointment. So when 10 o'clock comes on the day of your appointment, I'm ready. I'm there. And the angels are ready. Archangel Michael is ready. Yeshua is standing there. I have an organizer. I have dolphins and whales. Roger, the dolphin, and he's a dolphin. He's a little guy, but he has a merry band of whales, a lot bigger than he is, that comes in to help me. And I have all of the archangels around, present. And what I also call it, which are your angels too, are all of your ancestors that come to support you. And they sometimes bring you messages. They are there, they're crying, they're happy, they're whatever it is, but they show up. And they're sitting in the gallery and we do the work. And there are times that I don't have anything hard and fast for any human being because everybody's different. That's why it's done in this way, individually, until they show me to do it. Otherwise, I do it individually, because if you take something that is bad from someone, especially if they're related to them and they're in that same environment, that can latch onto them very quickly. So to protect that, it's best that you do one-on-one. Okay, so there's a lot of different little things that twerks it why I do it that way. I totally depend on them. And there are times through the session, I get a tap on the shoulder and Archangel Michael says, oh no, you forgot to do this. And the whole of this work is geared for this one person. It's all about them.
Oh,
that's it.
I love that. And, I've been raised to believe in God, my whole life, baptized, confirmed. And after our session, you talked a lot about Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, it's something resonated with me. And ever since then, he has appeared to me. I've pulled oracle decks and he's the card that comes up, and I've had dreams with him in it. And now since our session, I feel like he's there for me, and this personal, relationship with him. And that I don't think would have happened if I didn't do the session with you, that close connection. And so I do always tell people when they ask about my session, I'm like, oh no, we work with God and the angels. Like,
I have to tell you something very special about that. Every client I've worked with, Archangel Michael is always thereafter, very constant in their life.
Wow.
It's basically a returning to yourself,
yes,
belonging to God. When you return to God, because there is a part of the session where you return to God, and he really, you're focused from a baby, from when he created you. And so you have that connection there again. It's the same like some people. I'll tell you very simply, schizophrenia. It's not a physical disease. It is an energetic disease.
Yes.
Okay. So when people suffer from schizophrenia, it's because they're separated from God. And there's a part of their soul, whether it be 30% or 10% or whatever it is, that is lost out in the universe. And so basically what I do when that is happening is I have to go out and retrieve that part that has been shattered away from the rest of it. And I bring that back, and it makes you whole. So that is how things like this come. When the person is whole and the balance comes, then they're whole again, and the schizophrenia will go. It might take a little time to get out of that pattern. It's the same, I'll use another word, melancholia. You see, there's a person, they're always sad, and there's no reason to be sad. They have the perfect life. They have a nice husband, a nice wife, beautiful children, lovely home. But why are they sad? And they don't even know. If you say, why is it? I don't know. I'm just sad. I call that melancholia. It's like a precursor. Another bit more gone, it'd be schizophrenia. And the poor person is unaware of what's happening.
Like a piece of them is just missing.
It's missing.
And they recognize something is missing, but they don't recognize it's their soul that's missing. Like that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Thank you for that. And so when you bring that back, and it's all about balance, like the scales, you have to balance. Your body needs to be balanced. Your mind, your soul, and your spirit needs to be in balance for you to function. And I will tell you, even when you are finished with your session and you're free to go and live your life.
Wow. I just had like a complete light bulb moment, as you said, this like soul retrieval and bringing back that missing piece. Because before our session, actually before I got sick, I'll never forget the birthday before I got sick. My husband and my friend said, what do you want to do for your birthday this year? We can do anything. What do you want? And I remember saying, I don't even know. I don't care. Like nothing could bring me joy. And I just remember this feeling of like, who is this Mandy that can't find one thing in this world that could bring her joy to do on her birthday? And then, fast forward 6-7 months, I was so sick and all this, and we had our session. And I think that's what it was now looking back. Like I was missing something in my life. I was missing me. I was missing who am I, my authentic self, that yes. Younger version Mandy when I was a child, and I would play and dress like a princess and be me. And our session, even though, I was sick, I believe now, you said that soul, bringing back that missing piece, I started to thrive and I was whole again. And even when my world fell apart, divorce and all this stuff, I was actually happier, than I had been in all the years prior, because I was me and I had myself. Yes, I didn't have my husband, I didn't have my home, I didn't have anything, but I had me. Yeah. And
I knew even before I even started your session, I knew that you would leave that husband. I knew you would divorce him. Yeah. I knew that. But it was good. I had to trust God to guide you through it. Even if I knew it, it wasn't said. They didn't say, tell Mandy. So I didn't tell Mandy, and Mandy found her way.
Yeah.
But another thing I'd like to share, I've been recently receiving phone calls and messages from a lot of past clients, like 25 years ago. Yeah. And they're all doing well.
Wow.
Beautiful. Mark is just moved to a little island off of New Zealand. They call it the South Islands. It is a paradise to live in. And just a little bit about Mark. I met Mark when Mark was 24 years old. And we always kept in touch wherever he went. And I can remember he said to me when he was about 26, he stayed with me, and I used to have classes a lot. So he was in every class for like 2 years. I said, Mark, time to go on, He said, no, I'm not ready yet. He said, let me stay a while. So I said, okay. And I would even take them to Casadega,
I
and
love
graduate.
Casadega.
Yeah. And they'd let them feel energy and things like that. It's very changed now, but at the time it was a very beautiful place to be and feel energy. And I love that place. I love the lake. But coming back to Mark, eventually he went and he said, where should I go? Should I stay here? Should I go somewhere else? I said, doesn't matter where you go. I said, you will thrive and you'll do well. So he went to New Zealand. He said, I like the food. The fruit tastes like fruit. And that was like 25 years ago. And Mark is now retired. He's a young retiree, but he thrived so well. He met two young boys at the time. He was a little bit older by 2 years, and he joined a company with them, and they built a beautiful tech company, which they eventually sold. One of the brothers died, and then there was the two of them, and then it was too much for them, and they sold it to a bigger company. And he also a great photographer. And I said, why don't you turn your photography into paintings and sell them online? And after much cajoling of 5 years, he did that. And then Prague came calling an art gallery, said, we'd like to present all your work in a gallery just for you. And he flew to, I can remember I was in Italy at the time, and he flew to Prague to do this. It was fabulous. Wow. This is his life. And then everybody laughed at him, said he was skinny, he wasn't handsome, he didn't have muscles. He was brilliant in the mind. He used to teach at 24, he was teaching, he was a professor in college. And I said, don't worry. I said, you will grow, you will blossom. There's so much for you. And at the time it's happening, he thought, no way, you can't see it. But guess what? The ugly duckling turned into a beautiful swan. Ugh, and then he met a beautiful, he's Austrian, and he went to New Zealand, and an Austrian girl went on vacation to New Zealand, walked into a British pub and met him. Bang, they fell in love. They got married. Beautiful. He's blossomed, she blossomed. They're now living the life that everybody dreams of. I couldn't ask for more. Wow. And he's never left my side. He's like a son. I have sons, not so many daughters, but I have sons around the world.
Well, that's great to hear that a lot of men are putting in the spiritual work. You know, I think we don't hear that often enough. So I love to hear that.
Oh, no. And men are a little afraid because they think they're not macho if they do that.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with Mark. He's very macho. He's there, just doing his thing. And then I've known River since he was 15. And River was a bull. If he lost his temper, people would run for cover. And I remember coming home, and there he was destroying the furniture. His father was cowering in the pool, his girlfriend in a corner. And they said, don't go near me, he'll kill you. I went up to him, I looked at his eye, grabbed him by the throat. I said, stop. He stopped. This young man went to India to study yoga. He's a fabulous yogi. He travels around the world teaching the men and the women to have, especially the men, the balance of the masculine and the feminine. And he also he is one of the few people that do yoga that I know his body is like a yogi master, strong, muscular, but flexible. He eats well. To look at him is a joy. He lives his life to the best. I couldn't ask for more.
Wow. And I love you sharing these stories, because I know that there are people going to be listening to this episode that are in that season of their life where they are physically ill, mentally ill, dissatisfied with life, in that low space that we as humans, like you said, must experience in order to grow. And so, hearing these examples of, me and the people you just shared about being in a low season and using, energy clearing and using your services and your gifts to transform and move on, that there is hope, that there is more life on the other side of whatever they're sitting in right now. It's so refreshing to hear that. And I think sometimes we have a hard time understanding, how can a past life impact us now? How is going back to a past life, or to something we don't even say consciously we're aware of, going to help us move forward?
Okay, I give you, for instance, a little story about a nurse. And quite frankly, she didn't believe that I could help her. She didn't particularly believe in God. She was just wandering around, and she was a nurse and very scientific minded, and like, really? And I met her husband, who was trying to sell me something. And when he discovered what I did, he said, my wife is in pain all the time. I think you could help her. I said, what about you? He said, no, she really needs it. So I said, okay. So she came. She didn't believe. She was kind of laughing, very cynical. But I know that God doesn't judge you by who you are, or what you believe, it's nothing about religion. It's just about God. And she came, and she had a short session. because she wasn't participating much. And I clipped all the energies. I took her back to a past life. And we happened to go back to a past life where she hurt her foot or her leg. And I said, oh, this is why you're constantly in pain. You hurt this part of your foot in another lifetime. And she had no clue what I was talking about. She didn't really want to understand. She only knew she had a pain. And I took that energy out. I cut all of the lifetimes right through, taking her back to the beginning where she was first created. And she got up, she jumped up, she says, the pain is gone. I said, that's wonderful. She left and never heard from her again. It's as simple as that. It could be it's sometimes best described as stuck energy in the body, in parts of the body that needs to be released. Some people have acupuncture and that is released, but it keeps coming back because you're releasing it temporarily. You haven't cut the karmic string of all the lifetimes back to the beginning of where you got that injury from. There's a lot of things about people who have their ancestors commit suicide. Suicide then becomes, and then you see the next generation that commits suicide, and it goes on. That's generational curses, it's in the DNA.
Yeah.
So I also work with the DNA, and through the session, the DNA too is worked with. I worked going back into the womb where you collect fluid from the mother, her mother's mother, and all the way back into the lineage because it goes back. So you have to remove all of that. And then the father and the father's father, which always brings in violence. And sometimes they say, but my father wasn't violent. Doesn't matter. But we're covering all the going back into the generations. It's right through the DNA.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And that was something I had to kind of become aware of, with my family living in Germany and Europe and World War II. And I started, through our session, and you talk about DNA and our lineage. And, I remember my grandparents would never speak about World War II. We learned about it in school in America, and we learned about it in a very standoffish, unemotional, detached way. But when I would go home to Europe, I'd want to go see these sites, from World War II. And my grandparents wanted nothing to do with it. They wouldn't talk about it. They had a lot of trauma around it. And then I started realizing that the fear that they had, grown up with from war and all these things was stuck inside of me. I was always an anxious child. I was anxious in school. I was anxious in new situations, fearful of masculine energy. And then I realized, it's not my fear. I'm really not afraid of much, But I felt
but
their
it's in
energy.
The DNA. It was passed down through the generation.
Yeah.
But I do understand the hurt and the pain you feel. I still feel the hurt when I watch anything about the Holocaust. And there's some things that will always affect you. You know why? Because we are human. And we then learn to love in a different way. And as we see these atrocities, that's when we can stand up and say no and fight back and say no. Only love is real. It's all about the love. God didn't send you here on earth to write books, to run a marathon, or to create anything. He simply sent you here to love each other. And he didn't say you had to go into a church to love each other. But as you walk along the street, you're loving people. Each smile saves a life. And that doesn't mean that I don't get wounded. Yes, I still get wounded because and mostly you get wounded when you become into your humanness and not staying in your spiritual body. So if you walk up there in your spirit body, only with love, and for me, when they cross my path, which I've experienced here even in the shops. In fact, in a Gap shop, I went to do something. I was bored and I went for a little walk and whatever. And I went in there and I saw a girl that was so demonic. I've never seen anything like that way out in public. It was so bad. And she was giving me a hard time. So I called the manager and I said, you have no idea. But I think he had a little bit of inkling what was going on. And he said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And by the time I left, the anger in the spirit that was in this girl followed me out and tried to crash my car. Luckily for me, an angel came by And because I pulled over and I realized what was happening, I said, okay, this is not going to happen. Be calm. This is your work. This happened. So I rescued this poor girl. So I'm not looking at her as being the demon. Mm-hmm. The demon was inside of her and she was released. Yes. And then somebody saw that I had to quickly pull over my car, distress. Another guy came up and blocked the whole traffic and he stopped and he came over. He says, are you okay? I said, yes. And we shook hands. As I shook his hand and I touched him, I knew him in his soul, way back into the time of the Romans. And he came and he was my friend. And that was a beautiful recognition. So not only releasing a young girl from a demonic situation, I came out and I met a friend from the past.
Wow. Yeah, we are all connected.
We're all connected. So this is the beauty of how our world can shift and change. I mean, for me, it's been all of my life. It's not, doesn't mean that this is going to be for everybody, but you in that way, but they will meet people from their past lives. I have met many people from my past life, getting me to a place where I needed to go. Mm-hmm. Everybody will meet people along the way in different situations so that they can get them to where they need to be. But the most important, when it all comes down to this, and whenever you are concerned or whatever, just sit in love. Just sit in love. Yeah. And the door will open and a new understanding will always come.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's beautiful. And you kind of mentioned this, and this was actually one of the questions I wrote down because I had experienced this. So, negative energies, however you define them, can cling to us, can stick to us, right? Because that was something I had experienced. I went to a new city. I went to Amsterdam, never been there, was excited to go. And I had this anxiety attack in the middle of a bar, and I never felt the same after that moment. And I just assumed, it was too much traveling, or, you put all these human assumptions on it. But now looking back, something happened to me in that bar for real.
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. Now, what happens sometimes with that when you are in a situation and you're traumatized? It's like a little window in your soul opens up and bam, walks in something ugly. Just like that. And this is what happens to children when they're abused, people who are frightened, or they come up against something that they're not prepared, they're not able to repel. This happens to them. It can take over their lives, destroy them. It can happen with their children. It doesn't matter what age you are, it can happen. You just have to be strong enough. And Karma Life Healing helps you to grow strong so that you can repel it. But know that once this is done, you will find a path, you will find a strength. And when you get weak, speak to God. You're never alone. And you have angels around you. Your angels are so busy wanting to help you, but we become lazy and complacent, so we forget to say, guardian angel, I want that nice shiny red shoes. How can I afford this? Help me do this. You'll see how the angels will guide you. You'll get another job, whatever. It's a gift, and they're giving you a gift because they want to know that they care about you. Simple things, as well as serious things. But they hear you, and they're sort of standing there like, really? Why aren't you not putting me to work? So we all come here for a purpose. We come on a journey, and there's some people that give up their entire souls to come here to teach us compassion. All the people we see begging on the side of the road, homeless people, they've given up their soul to teach us something. And that is how to love, how to be compassionate, how to be kind.
I love this. Oh my gosh, this interview has been so much more than I could have ever wished for. And I totally appreciate all of your wisdom and your messages. And I feel like, now a lot of people are going to be curious about getting a session. So do you mind if I ask you just a couple more questions for those who are probably curious about what a session looks like and how that works?
Not at all.
Okay.
A session means it's totally one-on-one. This is about that person. They can call me. My phone number is 954-821-5935. I love the phone. It works great. I work on the phone. That way I don't want to know anything about them. don't need to see them. All they have to do is call me, make an appointment with me, and that's basically all they need. They can go to my website too, which gives them a lot of information right there. And my website is haddasahtoyo.com.
Perfect. I'm going to put it in the show notes too, so that there'll be a direct link in the show notes.
Right. They can text me. There's a lot on the website, but don't email me, please. It gets lost in the junk that I get. Doesn't matter when I just have one email. So please text me and tell me you'd like an appointment. I'll call you and make the appointment convenience. And then we're fine. I'll take you through anything else that needs to be said or done. It's not a big deal. Everything is there, but just call me. That's it.
If someone has never, like, say, meditated or done any spiritual work, they can still do a session, right? We kind of touched on that with the nurse, but for those who are like,
definitely,
I don't even know how to meditate, I've never went to therapy.
This is not about meditation. I don't meditate with them.
Perfect. And then, I know probably all of your sessions look so different because they're unique to the individual, but could you just give like a very kind of rough overview of like what a session looks like? Someone's calling you and they're like, what's going to happen? Can you just do a very basic?
No, everything I've said, like I did before, that is a session. Okay. Every story is a session. You just have to turn up to your session on time. I mean, you can be 5 minutes late, things happen, that I understand. But you do that. It's a day that you should do where you're not going to work, or you do as very little as possible. Preferably that's your day. You wear white. It's easier to wear white because you feel better when you wear white. It's easier to see in the spirit when you're wearing white, for me. And make sure you eat a little bit of breakfast. You don't want to be hungry and thinking about what you're going to do. Have a bottle of water. Make sure the water is capped. Don't put a glass of water there and then through the session you're going to be sipping it. No, because water will also pull energy. I don't want you to pull anything negative back in your body when you're working. So that's all basically that you need to do is turn up, preferably on a comfortable phone, put the earbuds in, recline and relax. Make sure you're not interrupted. The session is going to last anywhere from 2 hours to 3 hours. I would try and make it as short as possible. Yes, there is a follow-up included in the $500. About 5 days after that, I want to speak to you on the phone. There is no extra charge for that. And that session is really for me. I want to hear that everything in your voice, as I scan your body, that everything is there. If there's anything missing or we forgot something, you will know in those 5 days. Just jot it down, make a note, and we will deal with that.
I remember laying on my couch. Like you said, it was about me. I asked my husband, I asked everyone to leave me alone. Everyone left the home. It was just me alone in the peace and quiet of my own environment. And I think I really like that. I like being, home, and you were there, you were in my ears, you were in my head, you were right there with me, but you weren't there. And that was something I wasn't used to. I was used to a counselor in front of me, or a Reiki practitioner in front of me, or someone in my physical space. But having you in my energetic space and no one in my physical space was actually really refreshing.
Through the years, I've done a lot of them in person, and some of them have been really wonderful stories, which I will possibly share at another time. But on the phone, what I've noticed with a majority of people, they release much easier, much better. They feel more confident in releasing and sharing what they need to share when they're just on the phone, just a voice. But I find some people, when you're actually in an office with them and you're looking at them, they get nervous, especially the men. They start to hide things. And you're not hiding anything, because I'm not sharing it with anybody. I might share a story like I did of Mark, but I have permission to share that story. So you have total privacy, and the privacy is yours. You share what you want to share about your life.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I love the ritual part. Can we touch on that just for a moment? You created this ritual, like you just mentioned, wearing white and taking a shower after my session. And that outline, and it was so important. I love the ritual piece.
Yes, it's very important, because you're coming ready, your tummy has got enough food in it, and you are present. And wearing white is good. Colors are very important. There are not that many colors. White means that you're neutral. You're basically neutral. You're not getting involved in this or that. But in the spirit eyes, when I'm looking, if you're wearing white, it's easier to see in white than it is to see in darkness, in black. And then as you finish your session, you've got a lot of energy flying around you that I've been pulling out and pushing in and all that stuff. So you want to really get, as soon as you're finished, you go straight into the shower, your clothes goes in the laundry, you wash them immediately. If you can't do that, put them in a plastic bag and seal it till you can wash them. And you go straight to the shower, and you just, from the head to the foot, you wash your whole body. You come out, drink some water, eat anything you like, make yourself happy, read a book, go to sleep, watch a love story, everything happy for that day. Take a nice walk alone in the park. Don't go meet your friends for lunch and dinner because your auric field is very sensitive. And I try and seal it, but we get too excited and we open up again. You're very vulnerable for a few hours. So I don't want anything walking in. That's the only reason why I say make it your day, things like that.
Yeah. I have to share this with you. After, we had our session and you told me to take a shower and rinse off, all the energies that were lingering. Can I tell you, ever since then, when I take a shower, I now do a visualization that not only am I washing my physical body, but now I'm washing my energetic body from the day. And I do like a mental visualization. And I never, ever would have come across that concept if we hadn't done our session.
That's fabulous, because that's exactly what you should be doing. Because we go out into the world and you don't have to be in the supermarket and people are angry and they're fussy or whatever. All of that energy sticks to your clothing. If you want to wear it again the next day and it's a special piece, then wash it and wear it. That's fine. But don't, go to bed when you've not showered. Then you have nightmares and you wonder why. Because you've got everybody's energy disrupting your energy field.
Yeah. Light bulb moments, like just, wow, it makes so much sense. So I have one more question, which I know a lot of people are probably curious about and ask you. A lot of people have their partner, their significant other, and they feel like they've known each other in a past life, or maybe they're in a relationship that's really tumultuous and they're fighting a lot and there's a lot of drama. Do people come to you for couple sessions? How do you navigate that? And
what I do? Yeah, that is a fabulous question too. What I do when couples are having a struggle, because remember, not only in your personal session, I work with you, but I also work with your mother, your father. It depends on if they're dead or if they're alive. That's okay. When you have couples that come, they have an individual session themselves. He has hers, she has hers, and he has his, no problem. And then after that, I bring them together and I teach them together how to interact with each other, why this is happening, why this is not happening, and how we can make it better. And usually they fit together very nicely. And there's also a meditation that I will teach them that I only teach to couples, right? That will help them get closer together, trusting each other. And it's beautiful. And I know it works because I've worked with several people that are married, that are close, and it works very beautifully.
Yes.
And remember, the most important thing where it comes to couples or where people are sexually active, when you are sexually active, you are passing energy back and forth into each other's bodies. So if one, especially a couple that are sleeping together sexually, if he has a session, don't have sex the next day, I try and do it back to back. Then she has her session. After that, you're fine. But if one has a session, the other one doesn't, you're passing the energy, negative energy back and forth. And then you wonder why, that didn't work. And da, 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 da. There's a lot of confusion continuing to go on. So it is very important that both of you sever those energies. It's like having a teacup full, one with dirty water and one's got clean water. You have to wash both. When both is clean, there is harmony.
Oh, I am so glad that you brought that up, because this was something I understood, way later into my 30s. When you're young, in God and the Bible, and it was, wait to have sex until you're married. And it just sounds so kind of like, prehistoric.
Archaic. Yeah.
Yes. But now understanding the energy is God was like, you don't want to bring any negative energy into your marriage, because you absorb that negative energy through that sexual contact with a different partner, and to keep your marriage pure, right? The unity, the purity of marriage. It's all about energy. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is how it should have been explained to me.
Exactly. But the saddest part is, from the Victorian age, people stopped talking about these things. They stopped handing it down to their children and giving them the reason why.
And nowadays, it's very rare for people to enter the unity of marriage, as a virgin. So would a session with you and doing some karmic clearing and some, before marriage be a really good idea?
Yes, it really would be. And there's no judgment.
Right.
There is no judgment here. You can't correct something that you were not taught.
Right.
And quite frankly, when we look at it and understand more, this is the exact reason our entire world is upside down, because of sex. There are 3 things that we clear in karmic life healing: power, sex, and money. And these are the 3 things that are destroying and tearing our world down.
Yes. And I love, we've touched on it a couple times in this interview, but, when we heal ourselves, when we kind of clear that negative energy, when we, kind of purify ourselves, and then we go out into the world, we're able to love more. And I truly believe that if we all do our part and we all kind of clear our karma, and we all, work on ourselves, we're able to heal the world, right? Because we are part of the whole world.
Yeah, we are part of the whole, because the world, each and every one of us, is related some way, somehow.
As you go out into the world and go to the malls and go to the store, your aura, your happiness, your love is not only inspiring, but infectious. And these sessions can really do that. I mean, I'm a testimonial to that.
Yes. Well, you are a walking testament, and one I'm so very proud of. And I'm glad to know I have a daughter out there now.
Thank you so much. And I just have one last question. This is more my curiosity, but maybe someone else is curious too. Have you ever experienced, as a healer, as someone who works with people that are going through major life changes, do you ever find that people kind of use you as a crutch? Like they do their session and then they keep coming back and they're like, help me with this, and I need more of this. And you have to kind of probably release them as butterflies, right? Like it's time for you to do the thing.
Yes.
How does that happen?
I think, to begin with, even when I first started doing this work, I used to sort of wonder, how is this one doing and that one doing? But then what I realized most important was, when they fly away, I'm happy, because I know the work is done and they're okay. But there's some people that have to come back. Like I've had several people who, one session, they should just clear it, they should be gone. But they have other major things going on, whether it's to do with anything to do with their world, whether it be the physical, or whether it be a relative or a specific situation. Or sometimes some of them has so much what's going on, they have to have a follow-up session, which is also addressed on my website, if they have a follow-up session. And that is usually done. And goodbye. So if you're not saying goodbye to me by then, something is very wrong. I don't really have that problem. It's rare, but it happens. And then I've had other people who have had ongoing things coming into their life that is persistent, and I've had to work with them. And some of them I've worked with for a year, but that's a totally different situation. It was a family situation which involved like 10 people.
Wow.
So it gets spread out. And so we have to harness all the things, get everybody organized. And it takes time. Sometimes with children, there are children that are extremely difficult. They're going through different things with their parents or growing up. And I have to work with them from a distance on an ongoing basis, sometimes for a year. But at the end of the year, they're okay. They're flying. Their parents have said, we got it. Everything's good. And then
the majority of the time, it's pretty, one session can make major changes in someone's life. One
session. I always did just one session, and then basically you're done. You should be good to go. But what I'm seeing over especially the last 10, 15 years, that one session for a few people is like not enough. And then it opens up a whole can of worm, and they're coming, say, oh my God. And then I'm seeing all of this, and then they have to go to another session because I don't keep them in the session longer than 3 hours. It's too much to do that. So if they need a follow-up session, that's okay. We're not going to wig out about that one. As I said, they can book a session, a follow-up session is up to them, or go along as you feel. It's fine. But
or we can just come for a tune-up every once in a while, right?
If they feel like it. There's some people that come and say, oh, I just want to talk about this, this, and this. That's fine. You can talk for 15 minutes. That's fine. The universe is you know what you want. And if you only want half an hour, that's fine. It's $2.50 for the hour. And if you just want 15 minutes, you're done. That's fine. And if you want a half an hour, that's fine. If you want an hour, because you know what's going on, that's fine too. And that usually works very well for people. But I suggest that after the Karma Life healing. I think it serves, no matter which way you go, or what you do, the most important thing is to have a Karma Life healing. Yes. I've worked with babies from 3 weeks old, and I've worked with people who are 95 years old. I've worked with people that have Alzheimer's, and they just sit, and I start to work with them, and they start to move, and they start to look around, and they start to try and communicate. I had one particular lady who was, her husband had died, and she was in 80-something years old. And her daughter said she hasn't looked at me in 6 years. She has no response. This poor she's not young, but the lady goes and she looks at her mother and she just weeps. So she said, will you come? And I did go. And the moment the mother saw me, she got excited. She grabbed my hand and she started rubbing my hand and flicking around and, in a good way, with her fingers, trying to communicate. And she looked at her daughter. And I also saw where her husband was standing in the corner, very handsome, very young, patiently waiting for her. Yeah.
Wow. So
and he was
beautiful.
Beautifully dressed. They were Cuban descent, and he was standing there in his white suit and his Panama hat. So handsome, waiting for his wife.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I mean, this was just more than I asked for. And, my heart is just so grateful for you, for how much you've changed my life. And now, coming on this podcast, and you've never done anything like this. So I was so honored when you said that you would just come on and it would be like 15 minutes. And here we are 1 hour in. And I just, there's so many messages, so many light bulbs. And I can't wait to hear the response in the lives that are changed because of this 1 hour we just spent together. So thank you so, so much. Anything else you want to share, kind of last minute, last final thoughts, anything you want to put out to our holistic soul sisters, anything that comes to you? The floor is yours.
Okay. It has been my pleasure and my joy to share this time with you. Wishes do come true, because I always said, I'm sitting here and I'm not reaching enough people. So they sent an angel called Mandy Rose. And here I am speaking to more angels outside, waiting to come through, to be able to do and join us in our work to share love and light in our new world.
Oh, thank you, Haddasah. Thank you so much. And I'm sending people your way. Anyone that's listening to this episode, her information will be linked in the show notes. Or if you guys want more information, but you can always reach out to me personally and I can connect you with her, or just reach out to her. She's so easy to contact. The first time I talked to you on the phone, Haddasah, you made me feel like we'd known each other forever. And the communication was so easy. For someone who is nervous about reaching out, don't be. Just give her a call. She's right there for you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.